Hey everybody, I'm excited to be welcoming Rand and Wil to the first inaugural Content and Conversation series. We're very excited to be welcoming these two great guests to the first of many we're planning on interviewing great minds just like these two about content and SEO and links in some way. And obviously excited to have these people who really need no introduction, and Rand and Wil, two people I have very much amount of respect for. Obviously they've led the way. They're great role models for me, and respect them both immensely. So today our kind of topic is, it's January, it's 2018. What's new in content and SEO in 2018? So what I wanted to talk about is kind of the differences between yesterday and today as it comes to that, and kind of where to go from here based on that. So one of my first thoughts and questions for you guys is, if you were starting content marketing today, maybe again for Moz, 5 years ago, what would you do differently today than you had done at that time?
Yeah, I think the biggest item for me is probably focus. And I say that it applies to marketing and content marketing, but also to product, certainly at Moz. I think that becoming known for doing one thing extraordinarily well is many multiples the value of having a wide, disparate range of things that you're known for. Mm-hmm. And that is something where I think I thought too early in Moz's lifespan as a company that we could start to do many things and many things well. And in fact, we should have stayed very focused on just what we were doing. So that that extends into being known for SEO, being known for data, maybe even being known just for links and focusing just on link data. And then in terms of content marketing, I think that we also tried to go very broad, right? We tried to serve audiences in social media. We tried to serve audiences in the content marketing field. We tried to serve audiences in brand marketing and in broader digital marketing. We tried to build the brand of inbound marketing for many years, which you might remember. Just dumb. Like, I would not do that again. I would stick to SEO. I have even considered whether I would have changed our name from SEO Moz to Moz.
What I find kind of interesting to go off of that is, I do think we've kind of worked nicely focusing on content marketing and a link angle of search. And then Wil, you, I think, have kind of, at least from my vantage point, gone broader. And that's obviously is working for you. So I'm just curious if you have a counter argument to that thought, or maybe you still do narrowly appeal to something, which you do, obviously.
I think the biggest thing that I would probably do differently, because I just love the work that we're doing now. And one of my favorite things to do is to understand the complexity of a problem that somebody's trying to solve, because there's so much more to people than the keyword that they searched for. And I even think of my own process of buying my first stroller for my son Rio. And I was up at 3 or 4 in the morning one night looking at YouTube videos, trying to look at, do I want one that does this or that? And I thought about how many queries I had to do. I'm a runner, so therefore I needed one that I could run with. I'm an urban dad, so therefore I need one that's also folds up easy and I can take in the bars with me. You're trying to look at all these different factors, and I must have had to have done 1,000 different searches because nobody asked me who I was. Everybody wanted to just throw up top 10 strollers. And you're like, you don't know dick about me, right? Why don't you start off by actually saying, what do you like to do? Do you live in the city? Do you live in the suburbs? Do you do this? And then you can start to make a recommendation for me. So the thing that we're trying to convince more of our clients to let us do is to let us sit down with your customer, watch them begin to try to solve a problem starting at Google, and then watch how they search for different things. Ask them why they clicked on that, why they didn't click on that, what they like about this or that. So then we can build content that we actually know is going to serve the customer. Instead of serving Google only about how many times would Google want me to do this or that, or how many times do I have to do this or that. It's like, that's important too. But don't you want to feel like when somebody gets to that page, they go, yes, this is actually the thing that I was trying to find. And it's helpful.
So are you asking, so you mentioned get to know me. Is there a way to do that outside of like a user group, or is that on, imagine like a quiz in my mind that's interactive, but is there content behind that and you're not necessarily revealing that? Like what is that in practice that is there an easy or lower budget way to do that besides like a user group or something like that for?
Yeah, so I'm going to give out one of my tricks.
That's why we're here.
So, as we started interviewing individual people, I realized that didn't scale. And, clients get all hooked up on scale. And I always say, though, isn't it better for me to have talked to 5 of your customers than freaking 0? To have heard their pain? Like, to me, I'm working with a client that works in the rent-to-own space. And we talked to some of their customers. And one of them was a grandmother. And she was like, well, the reason why I do rent-to-own is because I'm on a fixed income. And I have grandkids. And when I want to buy their Christmas gifts, their iPads and things, it's easier for me if I know how much I'm paying every month because I'm on a fixed income. I got a 26-year-old doing their content strategy. That person, no matter how smart they are, does not understand the concept of fixed income. But once they started talking to them, they went, oh my gosh. And then we talked to 3 or 4 more people, and they also corroborated that similar kind of sentiment. And what I love about that is every time Laura Kane goes to do work for that client, she has an empathy for who some of those people might be for that keyword and what might help them solve their problem. I listened to these calls and it was like, one lady was like, I got a divorce and my husband left and now I got to rebuild my credit. And you're like, that's some of the pain behind the keyword rent to own laptop. And that's what I want to know, because now when I go to build content, I know I've got to build it for a set of audiences that the keyword by itself isn't going to tell me. Nobody types in rent to own laptop for people on fixed income or for my husband left me and went with that chick, right? So we learn more about people that way. And it makes me feel better when I feel like our content actually has a chance to connect with people. The way we cheat and do it at scale now is we'll put a pop-up on a site through Hotjar. Hotjar allows me to ask you questions like, was this content helpful? So now I can take a page of yours that gets 100,000 views a month, drop Hotjar on it for a month and say on a scale of 1 to 10, how much did you like this content? I take all that data, throw it into my data warehouse, and now I can show a client, here are the pages that rank highly on Google that have low trust signals, which means as Google gets sharper at understanding that this page doesn't solve people's problems, those user signals might actually make that number 1 ranking algorithmically drop as Google gets stronger at understanding user signals.
Do you ever find that doesn't correlate well with bounce rate or time on site?
I don't look at bounce rate or time on site.
Okay.
I have it in my data warehouse, but I don't, because every time I talk to my analytics team, they're like, time on site. Like it's noisy. So we like to do event triggers. So I'll put custom event triggers so I can see how far people are scrolling and are they scrolling down to where my call to action is and things like that. But like bounce rate and time on site, every time I say them, our analytics pros at the company want to vomit. So I'm like, well, because you guys are the pros, if you tell me you don't want to use those metrics, I'm just going to trust that. And they're like, let's just put events at the different things you want to see and where people scroll their mouse over certain areas. So then we can give you that data. We feel more confident. And I'm like, okay.
Nice. Yeah, Rand's living that in San Diego, talking to his customers for Moz. Did you do that since day one?
Yeah, of course. There? No, I wish. Yeah, I think that is. Will knows I wrote a chapter in the book that's coming out in April about literally that, right? Basically about completely messing that up. Building a product that was like, well, Moz has done this for so long, like, I'm a genius. I'm going to make this thing. And then basically brainstorming it and having, a 2-year-long build cycle of engineers and product people and designers working on it, and then launching it and having people go, nobody wants that. That's terrible. That's awful. And then going back to the table and being like, all right, maybe I should talk to some people who want this. Mm-hmm. I think getting far away from your customers is a dangerous thing in startup world. And I don't know, it's hard. You start to build up an ego and a reputation, and people tell you you're good at this, and then you start to believe them, and that's death. Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of my own thoughts on like what I would do differently, or just general thoughts. Definitely a long time ago, I just didn't, again, not focus for me. And we kind of just eventually focused more as an agency. And I think we've improved.
Yeah. That. You guys have like a reputation for a very specific kind of like, content meets link strategy at this point. And I think that's super powerful because then when people come to me and in the SEO world and they say, hey, we need to do this, we want to do this, or like we have this problem, I'll be like, you should talk to Ross. Yep. But it's very hard if you're good at like 50 things in SEO. Yep. Like I think that we have lots of friends in the SEO world who have broad offerings and
it's hard to pick them out.
It's tough to be like, who should I recommend? I guess I'll try and rotate through.
Yeah, one of the things it's kind of interesting to me today, I was talking to Tom Critchlow, who's a really smart guy, used to work at Distill, at Google, and he's out of the SEO world, and now he's thinking about differentiation with clients and work, and it's like you think of SEO and you're doing a search like cheap flights and things like that, and in a service offering, I feel like it's pretty clear, but for a lot of clients, I think about this and how to express differentiation in the marketplace and how it can stand out. I think for a lot of searches, it's like, how well can you really answer wedding etiquette or something? There's only so much you can improve on that search. So how do you differentiate? I don't know if you guys have thoughts of that or.
I have this weird theory that I've been trying to validate lately, which is basically that the people who have tremendous success long-term in a market are those who, I don't want to say skip over, but like sort of leverage SEO to a point and then have their brand skip over it and become something bigger, right? So this is, I've seen a bunch of examples of this, but one of my favorites that I love using is there's this company that I have been helping out informally in Seattle called CrowdCow. So founder of CrowdCow is this guy, it's a horrible name, but excellent product. So founder of CrowdCow is this guy, Ethan Lowry. Ethan was one of the founders of Urban Spoon, which used to be great before they were like bought and turned into this weird thing. But so foodie obsessed guy, right? Like, and he's big into meat, but his wife is vegan. And she was like, look, Ethan, if you're going to be continuing to eat meat, especially like cooking it at home, you better find the absolute best tasting, most ethically raised, like none of this factory farming crap. And so Ethan was like, okay. So he started talking, like interviewing some ranchers, found a few small family farms that would raise cows like in this fashion, and then had a conversation with them like, hey, can I buy some beef from you? And they were like, you can buy a cow from us. That is the smallest quantity of thing that we will sell you. So what did Ethan do? He emailed, like Ross might, right? Like he might email everyone in the room and be like, hey, Mel and I are going in on a cow. Anybody want in on it? And some of you might be like, yeah, I want some cow. Like, that sounds great. Let's get a side of beef. Well, he sent this email to 100 of his friends and he got 88 yes responses. And he was like, oh shit, this is my next company. Like, I need to build this because this is insane. And so he did. He and this other guy, Joe, they basically started, finagling all the logistics of getting beef. So, a few months into their building this, what do? I'm an SEO. Like, what do? You go and look at like buy steak online, buy beef online, right? All the terms and I'm like, well, it's not a very big market. Like, there's just not a lot of people looking for this online. And 3 months later, 3 months after they got a bunch of press and a bunch of people started talking and a bunch of people started telling this story the way I'm telling it to you, CrowdCow had more searches than all of those searches combined. End around. Yep. Screw it. There's no market here. I'll build the market. I will make this market. And that got me to thinking like, okay, how do you do that consistently? Right? So when you talk about like an SEO problem, I sort of go, I think SEO is a solution to certain kinds of problems, certain kinds of problems where people know they have them and they don't have a brand association already. They don't care about who they get as the result, right? And they just want that quick answer. And then brand building is how you dominate that market. Like Amazon, yes, they win at SEO and that does help their business a bunch, but they've also won at being the brand of where you buy stuff, right? Netflix, same for...
Reminds me of Airbnb, who I think you even had this in a presentation at some point, that vacation rentals was such a big search at one time. Still is a pretty large one, but Airbnb starts going up, and you see vacation rentals diving because Airbnb has now
It
become
became the word.
the word.
Yeah.
In a way. So it's interesting to think about it. It reminds me of, I think, one of the better business books, even though actually I haven't read it. That's ironic. Blue Ocean Strategy. But the general idea is like find your own place in the ocean, define yourself. It kind of like CrowdCow sounds like they are to do that. So kind of transitioning, we're thinking about content marketing in 2018. And I don't know if there are like new things that are making you excited about content marketing today that are evolving or you're spending more time on, Will, specifically?
Not really. I've already said it. When it just made me feel really different about my job to watch people go through content and watch them consume what's existing ranking. So you watch somebody that clicks on something and it's ranking well, and they're like, so we have a client. They let us watch people go through searches for words related to project management things. And they already had a piece of content before they even picked us that was ranked like really highly for project management words. So we're like, well, it's already ranked high. Why don't we make that content better by listening to what people say they want from it and where it's weak and where they like other pieces of content. What we found is everybody was like, if this thing had a table of contents, it would be amazing because it's so freaking long. We put a table of contents on it. 3 months later, somehow it started ranking for more words. So and we did no link building to it or nothing like that because it was already a strong piece of content. So we added some content in, broke it up into sections, 156% increase in traffic, 25% increase in conversions.
So you mentioned Hotjar earlier in our earlier conversation. Is that like, how are you getting those metrics specifically? Or in talking to customers, not metrics, sorry, that insights. Is there a survey software where you say you're watching their conversation? Just curious, just actionably.
You know what? I don't remember all the software. So we have a person who just heads up the search UX group. So I forget all the software that she specifically uses to get her panels and things like that, which is a struggle with clients. But we've convinced like 13 of them to let us do this, and every one just turns into a case study because once we talk to them, they're like, wait, so you got my number 1 and 2 rankings to give me more money? I'm like, yes, because we made sure it answered more questions than it was initially answering. But I use Hotjar because it's super cheap. It gets installed by a GTM. So since we control most of our clients' Google Tag Manager, I now have just avoided the whole conversation around, well, we got to talk to the tech team and they don't want to put it up and it's in the queue and it'll take 8 weeks. So we're like, we control your GTM. If you say yes, I can just get it up. My team copy and paste it in or whatever they do to GTM. 15 minutes later, I can now ask you whether or not this content is trustworthy. And would you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10? Or what would make this content better? So then at scale, I just take the URL in Power BI and I match my URL up from all my ranking data to all my Hotjar data. So now I can take low trust metrics lined up next to your rankings, bring those two together, and then I can build strategies off of that.
Nice.
One other tiny tip, you can only do this for searches that have lots of volume, but you can go to a clickstream provider like a JumpShot or SimilarWeb and say, hey, what do people who search for buy steak online search for after that query? What's their next search term? And you can buy that directly from them for, a few $1,000s. Like, it's not cheap, but a lot of clients will probably buy that.
You know what, too, I'm just thinking about, and I'm not sure if it's possible, but that kind of data, sometimes you can get from Google if you spend enough money.
Yeah, if you're like a big advertiser, right, then the team will sort of say like, oh, do you want to know this? What? You have that? Yeah.
So obviously we talked about the positive side of things, but how about the negative? What do you see people doing today that maybe you're not as excited about or you don't think will be working in the future?
Roundups. Roundups need to die. Oh my God, I hate Roundups so much.
The follow-up email to Roundups also sucks. Did you get my first email? Yeah.
No, you know which one I hate? Do you get this one? You probably get it too. You don't send this one. You better not send this one. All right, so this one is the worst. It's, hey Rand, we built blah, 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 blah. Would you be interested in seeing it? Just send it to me. Just send it to me. Like, don't do the thing where when I see those now,
of that occasionally.
When I do that, see that now, I just hit report spam. Because I know that someone basically was like, oh, this is a tactic where you can get a higher engagement because people will be like, well, it's probably crap, but sure, send it to me. Like now I'm curious, right? So send it to me, and then you get a higher click through than if you share it initially. Mm-hmm. But
what we do differently is, one, we know you're a very busy person, so we wouldn't email you that pitch. We go straight with the link. We're definitely thinking about mid-tier bloggers. More sophisticated people might not do it. Definitely, it's a little bit of a tactic.
Yeah.
But that's the thought process. And I think there's a little difference when you're thinking about roundups, and I don't want also our team to be like, roundups are horrible. I think what's horrible is when people are like, could I get a paragraph or two about this thing? That's what you're really talking about,
I
right?
hate that. Even the like, hey, here's these 10 questions. Will you answer them? Get them back to me by next Wednesday. Who are you? What? No, that's crazy. Now, what I totally love is when someone says, hey, we're doing a survey of startup founders. We're sending this out to about 500 folks. We expect around 150 responses. If you could fill it out, that would be awesome. We'll be publishing the results. We'll be happy to share with you a week before we publish. You can have the raw data. Yes, I am in. Data is actually super useful to me, to my team, to my investors. Like, yeah, I love it. That's a great way to do Roundup. So on all this stuff, right, there's always like I hate this, but if you do it this way, you could get a bunch of value.
Yeah. I think of a Roundup and I think of great curation is kind of what we try and do, is not even asking people things, but we find the best resources on the web and add value to it in some way, hopefully, and bring it together.
One of the best pieces of work that I've ever done, in my opinion, was the ranking factor document from Moz. So I'd survey folks like you and Will and say like, hey, will you take this large scale survey, get 150 SEOs to like sort of say, and this is back in the day when like, you know, we were asking about, well, what do you think about exact match keywords and domains? Or what do you think about, you know, the value of links with a no follow versus with a follow, or, you know, all this kind of stuff. And you could use that to sort of say, well, wisdoms of the crowds plus 150 of the relative smartest operators in the SEO field think that these things are what's going on right now, and this is what matters and doesn't. And lots of folks pointed to that, and lots of folks knew Moz because of it, and it worked great. It got abused, but you know, I think that that type of stuff can be great.
What do you think about the state of ranking factors today, Rand?
I'm sad that Moz isn't doing it. Like, Moz announced on Twitter that they're not doing it, and I had this like, you're not? Why not?
Kind of pissed me off.
You built it. I mean, why not, though?
Did you see my reply?
No, I didn't.
I replied and I was like, I might just do it on my own. Yeah, that's fine.
It does feel like it's getting a little less interesting, to be honest. I do get that. I mean, I definitely think we should all be thinking about it, but it's more, is it change? I mean, every search is definitely its own beast, but it's like, how dramatically is the macro changing to make that super interesting?
So I think what's fascinating to me is the ranking factors document over time, right? If you showed like, you know, here is a snapshot in 2005 when we first did it, and then 07, then 09, then 11, then 13. You could chart Google's algorithm. Like if you and I look back at it today, we'd be like, oh, that does a pretty solid job. Like, solid job of showing where Google went. Like, you don't see UX as a ranking factor. You don't see like searcher task satisfaction as a ranking factor until like 2013 or 15, right? You don't see people thinking about domain authority until like 2007, right? Like in those early days, it was all individual page based and, you know, all this kind of stuff. So I feel like that's actually a useful tool to sort of explain like, hey, I know we all get it, right? Like, you're in this room because you get SEO already. But if you're trying to explain it to somebody new, it's nice to have that like, hey, does the headline tag probably doesn't matter that much anymore. Like don't sweat it. Stop worrying about it. But does it matter if, you know, you use the word, you know, Brooklyn and Manhattan and Queens in a document about New York neighborhoods? Yes, it does. Like, that's pretty important. Or Gastown.
Yeah, it's right down the street.
In Vancouver?
Here in San Diego.
Here in San Diego.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you have any thoughts yourself about like what you see a ton of people doing that. Really
I know Will is a big
working.
ranking factors critic, but
Well, I just don't like it because it's like we're just not that smart, man. Like the machines are learning what people like and don't like. I'm starting to see things very query independent. And you just see these outliers sometimes, I think, and you're just like, man, I am not as smart as I thought I was. It was like you said earlier, you know? It's like, Sometimes you think you're a little smart and you walk around like, yeah, I know, blah, blah, blah. And then you do all this stuff and you're like, that didn't do squat. So one of my biggest I don't know shit moments in SEO was we had a client that sold sex toys. And I loved working with this client because he was on like Oprah and Dr. Oz and whatnot. He worked with and this was like no bullshit. We've been working with him in years. So it probably was like 2009, 2010 we were working with this client. And you know, he even helped us to empathize even back then with like, he was really big on when soldiers would come back from war and they were losing limbs. It really affected how they felt about their ability to perform for their spouses. And I'm like, yo, like that's real. And he went out and talked about that. And I was like, you know what? If I'm going to help somebody sell some freaking dildos, this is going to be the guy. Because Dr. Sandor Gardos was an amazing man. He really cared about sexual health. It wasn't just like, yo, freaking, there's great markup on dildos. He really cared about sexual health. And we got a link. So we did a sex toy day and we gave away a bunch of sex toys, got them on the radio, and we got a link. We got a mention on the New York Times. And I was like, I'm an SEO. I'm sitting around like, yeah, New York Times, radio stations. Website went down in like 5 seconds. Because we got hit so much traffic. We're like winning. They didn't link to us. Somehow we got the New York Times to link the word sex toys in 2010 directly to my client's website. So me and Adam Melson are sitting around like, we're crushing it. Wait till the rankings go up for sex toys because everybody's got bad links. And we just got a link from the New York Times. And we sat there and waited, rubbing our hands. And after the first day, we're like, it'll be tomorrow. Third day, it'll be next week. 4 weeks later, we're like, that didn't do shit. And I was sitting here thinking that I knew the ranking factors were going to be like, if you can get a link from a site like the New York Times, which none of your competitors can get, and it's got the anchor text, and it's an index page and all that good stuff, that we were going to get ranking. And at that moment, I was like, you don't really know shit, Will. You need to focus on something different because you really don't know what's going on there. Because everything I believed in that moment about SEO and what would help me to rank for the word sex toys was shattered.
I better work today. I bet in 2010 it didn't work. Because Google
spam worked better.
Yes, because spam worked better. It
spam
was
did work better then.
People had, everyone
where
in
are
the
they
top
ranking
10.
today, I guess is the question.
Yeah. Where's my phone? I probably shouldn't search for sex toys right now.
And also he let the domain sex toy day expire, so don't go to that because it sends you on a really bad path.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's good to know.
Aren't on like a micro or even a macro level we're tasked to know that for our clients? Like how do you walk that line?
Right, like they ask.
Yeah.
I assume.
Or functionally, we're hired to be SEOs, right? So, I mean, to me, I hear you talk about UX and things like that. Sounds like you're owning the ranking factor to me. Obviously, you don't see the 200 list, but you know that UX will solve for the ranking.
This is the gang up on Will portion of the evening.
I'm down. Bring it on, bitches.
So, yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are in that regard, thinking about.
I guess you could call it a ranking factor. I'm just trying to freaking help people find shit on the web, right? There's just a lot of bad answers, and I want to try to... it's funny, when you spent your life manipulating the search results and not really giving a shit about what people landed on, you realize that you really misled a lot of people. Like when I watch my mom search and she's like, oh my God, I clicked on these 3 sites and they installed all this shit in the toolbar. And I'm like, yeah, I did that for a while. Like helping people install toolbars and shit on people who were unsuspecting. Mom, way to be really proud of your son. So,
and now that's how we get clickstream data.
Well, we use it for good. Nothing's 100%. No, but so now I'm just like, you know what? Like, I was talking to a client just today. It's one of my, I love him because he lets us do the kind of work that I'm trying to build SEER for. You know what I'm saying? And we built this tool to help people pick their insect screens. I went down to this client's site in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, where they have huge machines building tons and tons of wire mesh. Sounds super boring. This guy lets us build out guides that actually help people go through processes on what is the right screen to buy for you. So my team went to, actually a couple of my people in San Diego, they went to Home Depot and they were like, when people are going to buy screens, what kind of questions do they ask you? Right? Because they didn't ever have to buy a screen. So what the freak are they going to write content for? So they went to Home Depot, talked to an associate. The associate was telling them different things that people typically ask and the things that they've got to know. So that was helpful. Then we also looked at our client's product on the shelf and they were like, yo, next to all your competitors, like it doesn't look like this, and that. Now that's somebody being like, I'm going to stop at Home Depot on my way home, ask a couple questions. So when I go to make content, I can drop that on the client. The client's like, sure, you can use all that stuff to build me an asset. This is why I have a design team now that's growing. Because I hate when I would give a client a great idea and then their design team would either not implement it the way that we wanted to or whatnot. So now I have to build a design team so I can help to solve my client's problem fully. So now my design team builds this with all the cool stuff in it because it's got the SEO. My PPC team is now putting event triggers on different answers that you're answering, so I can put you in audiences and retarget you based on like how big your company is and whatnot. So I'm putting in all these different things into this asset. The coolest part was when we built that, their customer service team started being like, and I have emails of screen grabs from this client. He's like, yo, my customer service team is using your tool that we originally built to rank for shit to help walk our customers through what the right screen to buy is. And the customers are thanking us for how easy it is. So now building out a piece of content that I thought was going to help me rank for insect screens or whatever is actually now helping their entire organization walk their customers through how to solve a problem. Like that makes me feel really good about my job.
Where my mind goes there is the difference between, I guess, how people understand the problem or ask questions about the problem versus Google. My mind is some of those questions can be solved or found through search data.
Absolutely.
Like search volume for long tail keywords and people trying to solve the problem. But it sounds like your mind's been going there a lot recently. So I'm curious how you see that difference and also like how big of a gap that is. Are there certain industries where they're just not asking the right questions, but they do offline?
I don't know. I figure it takes us half hour to talk to some people.
I think the financial industry is totally like that. Like the finance industry online, if you look at all the rankings for like credit cards and student loans and debt consolidation and all that type of stuff, which is a very competitive space that a lot of SEOs play in because those keywords are worth so much money. But if you sit down with a financial advisor, right, you will get a completely different story. Because there's all this, it's not designed to game the current ranking factors around engagement and like click-through rate and solve the searcher's task online. It's designed to, nope, I am a fiduciary, which means I have a legal obligation to give you advice of a certain caliber in a certain way. And it's kind of tragic that so many people do that search online because they can't afford to and have no network to find a financial advisor who will actually operate in their best interest. Yep. And so Google's the only thing they can turn to.
Ooh, you know what's really interesting about that industry? Because we have a couple of team members who have gone on to a company. We have a couple of team members who have gone on to a company in that space. And one thing I thought was interesting is one of their editorial teams does not get any traffic data on their articles because they want to draw a line between what you write and the feeling that I have to get traffic to it, which I thought ethically was interesting. Because we kind of trained this person up on UX and think about UX of search, he found it very interesting that he goes to Silicon Valley, hangs out with these people who write content for people around bad credit. They all went to fucking Stanford and shit. And he was like, I'm the guy that grew up broke. So I know what it's like to worry about the check coming the first of the month and this and that. But yet, these really smart people sit around with each other instead of actual people who have bad credit. Like if you went to Stanford and Penn, odds of you having bad credit are pretty slim, right? But yet you're writing content for people about having bad credit and they're ignoring his recommendations. And he's like, yo, my mama lost her house. Like I know what it's like to grow up in a place where people are worried about their credit. And there was just a lack of empathy for who these people were because if you went to Penn, odds are you don't know people who actually have really bad credit. And I thought it was just interesting to be like, damn, we have people writing content for people who have zero empathy of what it's like to be in that situation.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, when I started Moz, right, I had $500,000 in debt. So I had the worst credit possible, which means
I didn't know your credit was that bad until I read the book.
Oh, God. When I married Geraldine, her credit score was cut by 30%. Like, it was awful. It was like the worst.
Oh, you know that guy?
You put the ring on the finger and you're like, and down to 400. Sorry. Like, you were 750, but.
She could have used a financial advisor being like, girl, don't do it.
Yeah. That guy's no good for you. But yeah, like the things like I couldn't get an apartment in my name, right? She had to rent the apartment. I had to not put my name on it, which meant that like we had to go to the sketchy ass locksmith to get the do not duplicate key duplicated. Cause technically, if the landlord like made one for it anyway, but yeah.
Putting other people's kids on your tax deduction?
I haven't done that yet.
That's big in the hood.
All right.
My dad definitely used to do that.
Yeah, I kind of coming full circle. It's 2018.
I don't do it. My dad's like, have another kid. I need to put another couple of dependents on my tax return.
Can't empathize too much for this, unfortunately, but I appreciate you guys being here. Just kind of closing, definitely love giving people actionable things to do. Sure. I'm curious if there's a specific tool or a new tactic in content marketing or content that stands out as valuable.
So this is one of my this is a more difficult technique to implement. But for those of you who are thinking like, I want to invest in content in order to earn links and earn brand recognition and earn sort of the attention and awareness game, I think that because Americans, probably thanks to the, mostly the 2016 election, are so political and socially minded, anything that touches on those issues gets insane attention online right now. Burger King releases an ad about net neutrality and how it's like standing in line too long for a Whopper, right? And it goes crazy online because it fits a certain, mentality. I would urge you to pay attention to Memorandum, which is basically a political, a website that aggregates political opinion from all sides of the spectrum, and Twitter's trends, right? And if you can, log out and look at Twitter's trends because they'll be non-personalized and non-geo-biased. And then consider some of the things that you could write and create that tie those things together. Because I have been just shocked. Patagonia came out with their, what was the Bears monument in Utah?
Oh, they took over their homepage.
Yeah, they took over their homepage and basically said, the president is stealing your land, right? And a lot of people obviously disagree with that, but not a lot of Patagonia's customers disagree with that. And so they could play that really well. Penzi Spices.
Yeah, right? Man, I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, they did the same thing. And because you can play these angles, and it's true, all on multiple political sides of the spectrum, because you can play that so well for traffic and engagement, you can get crazy amounts of search, crazy amounts of branding and visibility. It's definitely a technique I would leverage, as long as you really believe it.
Risky a little bit.
Risky.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, risky, but if you truly believe it,
in some ways.
Yeah, if you truly believe it, if you're behind it, if your organization's behind it, if you want to put your stamp in that, arena anyway, I would say now is a great time.
Well,
I think honestly, what tool do I have open the most on my laptop right now? And it's probably Power BI or Tableau. I'm just telling you.
And no one in SEO knows how to use those.
Fuck no. It shocks me because keyword research, right? SEOs, I don't know what your process is. I know what our shit ass process used to be. And it's you put some words in and you look at search volumes and shit and then you go after whichever ones you can. And now I'm why don't I just marry the paid search data with conversions to my organic data? So now I can tell my client, I'm going to go after these words because they actually convert for you and drive business. Why wouldn't you do that? But people are well, how would you do that? You had to create a VLOOKUP. It's no, man, just learn Power BI. It's click, connect at the keyword level, you're done. And I'm finding that the insights that I am finding and the speed at which I'm finding them. So right now I have a graphic, and it basically divides a quadrant on ranking. So it's 100 to 0 and conversion 0 to whatever. I can run that for every client in our entire data warehouse. We match up their stuff. We have 80 that automatically match. And I'm anybody in the bottom right, problem. Because if you're in the bottom right hand, that means that unless you're at the 1 or 2 spot, so we filter out the top 5. But I'm if you're at the line that says you're ranked 8, 9, or 10 for your highest converting words, why else am I looking at anything other than the stuff that's actually converting for you? And to be able to run that across 15, 20 million rows of data, you just start having things at your fingertips that other people can't see. So I spend probably 25 to 30% of my day inside of Power BI kicking out reports for team members so they can have better conversations with clients with more data.
So from my vantage point, I haven't dug into that tool yet. Definitely sounds like an interesting one. Curious, what's the barrier to entry for that?
Nothing. It's free.
Agency.
It's want to be fucking great, right? Seriously, I've spent 3 years trying to get team members of mine to switch teams and all this to learn more about the other side. And people are how did you learn it? I'm I was watching tutorials while I was feeding my son at 3:30 in the morning. That's how I learned it. At some point, you got to decide to be great at something. And I was nobody's doing it in our space. And the minute I spent time doing PPC, I started learning how much data they had. So like one of the best things that PPC data gets you, assisted conversions. If you build out a graphic that shows assisted conversions on one axis and direct conversions on another, I find all the keywords that are highly likely to assist a conversion that don't drive direct conversions. That's the content that companies ignore because they don't drive direct conversions, so nobody wants to go after it. I can show that to any of my clients that have PPC data to go, here are the words everybody's going to ignore. But the higher up they are on assisted conversions, the more conversions they assisted for you. But the further they are to the 0 column on conversions, the less actual conversions they had. So when people don't get conversions on content, they're like, why would we write content about it? I'm like, because it assisted 34% of all of your converting keywords. The client's like, okay, that's a good case to write all that content.
So it's not software that you pay, or there's free trial? Or
Google, it's free, man.
Yeah,
it's
free?
like Microsoft gives it out for free.
Okay.
You can type in natural language questions into your data.
Why do you think people don't use it? It's just not enough brand awareness?
You know what it is, to be honest with you? It's a financial and sales tool. And I constantly try to sit with I sit with teachers and people in other industries. That's where I learn how to look at our industry in new ways. So for me, I started listening to different people that were doing big data. And I'm like, man, once I realized that my PPC team had hundreds of millions of search phrases with conversions and assisted conversions and mobile versus desktop conversions and all this data Google's willing to give, I went, that's a powerful position to be in. Why am I not using any of that, 0 of it, to influence what I'm going to do on SEO? And then once I brought those two things together, I just started seeing stuff so fast that I'm like, yep, like I gotta roll this out throughout the company. So that's why I've just been maniacally focused on that.
If you want a $25 million run rate a year business, you should just build the functions that Wil manually puts into Power BI
Already doing it.
into a tool where all you have to do is
and
just...
then you charge.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You just OAuth your GA, OAuth your Google AdWords.
I already got one of them built.
Good.
It's coming.
Yeah, there you go. So so don't tell anyone to learn Power BI. Tell them about new Wil product.
I don't need any more money. No, I just want to help people be smarter marketers and make better decisions for their clients. And, I think we're going to have a free version of it, whatnot. I'm not trying to charge people for it. So we'll have some stuff coming out that'll make it easy. But you know what? Don't use it. Because what I'm giving you is 6 months ago shit that you didn't know yet. So when we give away shit like that, and people are like, wow, look at all that shit SEER gives away. I'm like, yeah, I just brought in census data to my entire data set. So now I can see where people are moving and weather patterns and how that's affecting conversions across my entire data set. So go take my old shit. Because now I'm working on this and I'll release that in 6 months. And the beauty of releasing everything that you work on that's a secret, a quote unquote secret, is it forces me to get better the next day. It keeps you from thinking that you're really fucking smart. The minute you release all your smart shit out there, you're like, everybody now knows. So I just told all you guys the thing that's making me crush conversations for clients right now, which means I got to go back and get better at my job, or otherwise I got nothing a year from now when everybody else is using it. So yeah, man, it keeps me on my freaking toes. Give it out. I don't need
people won't exexecute though.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I know.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's a reason why people hire plumbers, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You can fix it yourself, but you won't.
Well, I really appreciate both of you guys coming in.
Dude, thank
really
you for having us.
Yeah,
it's nice to visit your space and everything.
To have us have you both for the first episode of Content and Conversation. Hope everybody enjoyed watching it, and we're definitely going to be putting these out every month or so. And thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.